Are you a marine biologist or marine conservationist that's struggling to find a job and you're thinking, you know what, maybe I can do this on my own as potentially a consultant working for various organizations on their campaigns? If that's you, this is the episode for you. I speak with a friend of mine, Emily Cunnigham, who I met back in 2018 in Malaysia at a conference. We've been keeping in touch ever since. We finally got a chance to catch up because her career development since the last time I met her has just grown into these huge things. And she actually spent some time with me to sit down and talk about what she does and how she does it. And it's just great to be able to speak to somebody and share and be so transparent about the work that she does. And we also talk about how you can get involved in contacting counselors and contacting politicians. It's going to be a great episode, so let's start the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode of the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Lewin, and this is a great episode. Why? Because it's all about careers, and I just love talking about careers in marine science and conservation because it's important to do so, because not a lot of people talk about that, or they don't really go into the details and what are the possibilities of the different types of jobs or work that you can do. You know, a lot of people think, well, you'll hitch on to an organization or a government body, and that's fine. Some people do that, and they work there for their entire lives. Maybe not in the same position, but they work all around, or they hop from government department to government department, or, private consulting to private consulting, like an environmental firm, or, they work with different nonprofit organizations. But that's not always the case, and there seems to be more and more entrepreneurs that are consulting for conservation. And I think it's great to be able to speak to Emily Cunningham from the UK to be able to get to know what she's been up to over the past number of years in her career. Great career, a lot of things to do, and she was really open and transparent about it, and I just love that. And while you're thinking of this, and it might inspire you to look and find a way to switch your career or get into careers yourself, I want you to think about the career that you could take in marine science and conservation, because that's what we're all about here. We're all about here trying to get you to enjoy the work that you do and to be able to enjoy the career that you do. So I am part of this Conservation Careers Academy. It's a great academy that I want you to be a part of as well, because it makes everything easier to find a job, or to even get the confidence to find a job and connect with other people to find a job. Conservation Careers Academy does that. It has an app that you can connect to mobile. You can connect with other people. I just connected with somebody, or somebody just connected with me. We're talking about different career goals and stuff like that. And it just makes things easier. And I just love the fact that I get to connect with other people and talk about marine science and conservation and the careers that we do. Plus, they have courses. I'm taking the conservation communications course. I'm almost finished it. There's also a project management course for conservation. And there's just the regular academy on how to either switch jobs or build your career in conservation. So check it out. If you go to speakupforblue.com, CC Academy, all one word, CC Academy, sign up. And if you put in the code SUFB, you get 33% off. And it's amazing. I highly recommend it. Go to speakupforblue.com/CC Academy and put in SUFB for 33% off. You're going to hear things that Emily is also talking about in this interview. So without further ado, let's hear from Emily. Here's the interview. Enjoy, and I'll talk to you after. Hey, Emily, welcome back to the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. Are you ready to talk about all things marine conservation?
I'm always ready. It's getting me to stop talking about marine conservation, which can be the problem, but super excited to be talking to you again.
Well, you know what? You came to the right podcast, right? You're on the right podcast. This is what we talk about. We talk about marine conservation with the projects, the people, everything around it. And, it's just funny. Before we were recording, I remember you being on the podcast for the first time. And I thought that was the only time. I thought we talked about the same project on the first time. But you came back another time in 2020. And both times, I think the podcast was still called Speak Up for the Ocean Blue, or Speak Up for the Blue. So a lot of things have changed. I mean, a global pandemic has happened in between that. I wanted to have you on because I want to catch up with you, in a way. You've been through a lot of really exciting projects. And so I want to catch up, see what you did, tell the audience what you did, and then just how you did it all, how you kind of came to doing that. I mean, I know you're amazing, so I understand how you got it, but it's, just how this career has continued to kind of progress. And I would say not so sort of traditional fashion of, necessarily working for one organization or another. This has kind of come up with sort of your motivation and sort of your sort of kind of like brainchild in terms of what you want to do. So I'm really curious to ask you all that. So I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to just ask you before we get started, if you can just remind people of who you are and what you do.
So I am I guess I kind of term myself an ocean conservation expert now. I chose those words because I've been doing this for a long time. I work in the sphere of ocean conservation, and I started to use expert in the past couple of years because I came to see that other people saw me as that, and I decided that my imposter syndrome could take a hike, and I'm going to use that from going forward.
Love it.
Because I don't have an affiliation a lot of the time. I work with lots of different kind of initiatives. I serve the ocean and the communities that depend on it as best I can. And I worked on lots of different projects, whether that's working with NGOs, local government, national government, campaigns, kind of anything that I think kind of aligns with my moral compass and I think can make a difference for the ocean and the communities. So lots of different things over the past couple of years.
I love it. I think it's a great way to look at it. I mean, there's a lot of people, including myself, who have had bouts of imposter syndrome, and we still have it in certain situations. I mean, I feel like it's a natural human sort of emotion or feeling that you have when you're in a room with maybe other scientists or other conservationists, or even just, when you're in front of, say, business leaders or whoever, right? But you're right. People hire you for your expertise in one subject matter or another. And you've done a great job at what you've done, and you've had you've built a great reputation in what you do. And it just goes by the projects, goes to show by the projects that you're working on. So I really think that's a really interesting way to think about it. I love that, just to kind of own it, be like, no, I'm an expert, like that's the way it goes. People hire me as an expert, and that's what I love it. So can you just kind of just give us a context in how sort of your work as like a business structure, for me, when I grew up, I grew up in this career. I've done, environmental consulting. I've worked for nonprofit organizations as an employee. I've worked for federal government as an employee. Now I kind of just I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a science communicator. This is what I do. I have my own affiliation now. Is that sort of your sort of designation now? Like, how would you designate yourself? Is it, I know you say expert, but it would be like a consultant type of thing for different nonprofits and different organizations and governments and so forth?
Yeah, so for 6 years now, I've run my own independent consultancy. In that time, I've had periods of work as well, always alongside the consultancy. And,
Gotcha.
As you know, sometimes it's all in, sometimes it's part in. It kind of, what appears on my desk on an almost monthly basis is, okay, this sounds interesting, I'll try and make that work. Right. I'm not very good at saying no. That is my New Year's resolution, is to learn the word no and use it more. So I have a life as well. But yeah, it's the structure, I suppose, is consultancy. But I, throughout my career, I have worked for NGOs. I've worked for local government, national government, and I'm open to whatever kind of the next opportunity might be. Consultancy has served me for this period. It's very much, what can I be using my energy for that has the most impact, has kind of been my driving force over the past decade.
I think that's great. And I'm starting to hear that more and more. I used to hear it a lot from, and I still hear it a lot from, people who are working in academia, where they're like, it's not necessarily a specific species that's driving me to learn more about a species, but it's a specific scientific question that, is driving them forward to be like, well, how can I answer this question, or whatever other question they might have. They might have a focus in like a specific topic and questions around that. And then whatever species will suit them and suit best for that, to answer that question, they use that, which I think is a great way of learning and being in science and academia and research. I like the fact that you're using kind of the same route as whatever you see that falls within your value system, and what you see as an exciting opportunity, and almost like a way. I mean, consulting is a good way to pick your own projects, the ones that you're like, you know what, I really like this. Because sometimes, like, say you work for government, you work for an organization or private consulting for like a firm, you may not like always the project that you're working on. here you get to choose the project. So you get to put your full passion into that project. It may not come around a ton, but when you do, it comes around and you take it, you just take it all in, which I love. And you did mention something else too, which I've seen a lot in consultancy and when people are independent, is it could be a lot of hours. It's almost like they call it like the feast or famine. So some days you're going to be working, or some weeks you're going to be working 80 hours, and then other weeks you're going to be working 0 hours, just depending on what's available and so forth. I've always had some sort of consultancy on the side as a way to, still fulfill what I want to be able to do, but also knowledge of, hey, you know what? These jobs aren't always going to come by. So I might need to get a different job in different ways. So I think that's a good way to set that up. Now,
on the consultancy stuff, I think something that, I've seen a lot so my partner's also a marine biologist, his name's Daniel Moore. We run Marine Biology Life together. And, when you're trying to both make your career in this field, it's kind of doubly difficult because, finding jobs in the same place at the same time that are what you want to be doing can be really difficult. And so consultancy actually came up for me as a way for us to be located together. We'd done so many periods of living apart and kind of reach a point where I don't, want to buy a house. I want to, kind of build a life, put down some roots. And in this career, there can be an expectation that you move a lot. And when you're in my early 20s, that was awesome. I was excited about it. I wanted to see the world. I once applied for a job on Ascension Island, having absolutely no idea where Ascension Island was. I got the job before I even looked where Ascension Island was, because my home is where I laid my head, had a bag full of stuff and I headed away. But as you get older, you or some people don't have that privilege to be totally location independent. They do have responsibilities. And so, I think for me, consultancy has served me well in that time where I want to be kind of, have more control over where I'm based. And, it has worked well for both of us. And, I see a lot of people, particularly a lot of women, who then want to have more control over, more flexible working, that it works for them as well. So if there's anybody listening and that sounds like something you'd be interested in, I'm always happy to talk about it.
That's fantastic. I love that. We see that a lot with couples who are in both in the same industry, especially marine biology. You're right. There's always that expectation, not only to be able to move, but also there's that expectation to be like, marine biology and marine conservation is your life, and so when people are like, well, I want to put down roots, I want to, at the time, like, get married, I want to have, maybe have a family, buy a house or buy a flat or whatever you want, like whatever's in your life, that you want to do. And I turned down a PhD to move back to Ontario to do that. And my professor's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I want to build a life. Like, I don't want to be student poor in my 30s. I want to, or into like close to my 30s. I want to have a family. I want to get married. I want to do all that. And I remember my supervisor just couldn't believe it that I was turning down that. I think he called my family life a distraction from my career. And I'm just like, look, you had your family. I haven't had mine yet. And I don't regret it one bit. But I think that's often the time, we have to, it's almost like a feeling that we have to choose, and especially, when it comes to females and people who identify as females in this industry who have to choose, work or building a family if they so choose to do that. And that's a difficult thing to do in a career. So I hear it when you say flexibility is important, especially for women and people who identify as women in this industry. I think that's really something that, we don't focus on enough, or we don't talk about enough and act enough to be able to provide that. So I think that's it's great. I always try and punch in lifestyle is important when we work in this industry. We shouldn't be held to standards above anybody else in terms of lifestyle or the way we want to live, so whether
that's
you want to live where you
one track line to burnout as well. I think this idea that career has to be everything, and when you work in something as competitive as marine biology, marine conservation, whatever derivation thereof, there can be this, I was just, my face probably said it all when you said about your supervisor calling your family life a distraction. Like, that isn't, it's not that this fight for the ocean has to be above everything else. In fact, the biggest thing that I've learned over my career is making sure you have that resilience by nurturing and investing in all the bits of your life as well. And, you know, finding a place, whether that's a workplace or a community of other kind of independent people that get that and support you with that, because, you know, you're not going to be able to sustain this fight for your life
Yes.
if work becomes everything. And, you know, if that works for you, then all power to you. But please don't, you know, I think when I started out, you see all these kind of role models and you don't see the reality behind the highlights reel that they put on social media or at conferences or whatever, the sacrifices that go along with making a success in this career. So I try and be really honest about what those sacrifices have looked like for me and for Daniel. And, you know, I do a lot of mentoring as well. So, you know, it is hard. It's a hard thing to do, but, you know, we all do our best to make it work within the realms of our circumstances.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, I want to ask you, what challenges did you face when you decide, okay, I'm going to have this consultancy, whether it be full-time or whether it be, you know, on the side at the time? What challenges did you face when you first started off? Because I feel as though there are a lot of people who would like to do similar things that you do, because they want that flexibility. You know, we see a lot with remote working after the pandemic. And, you know, when you're a marine biologist, you're going to be traveling a lot if you so choose, if you pick projects that do that. And so you still want that flexibility to do something like that. What challenges did you face when you first decided, okay, consultancy is one of the ways I'm going to go, whether it's going to be full-time or not? How did that, what were those challenges?
Yeah. So, at the very beginning, I decided, right, I'm going to try this, and I had basically no blueprint, no idea, sort of just threw myself into it. I just reached out to my network and said, you know, I'm available for work. You know, what kind of things might you need? And obviously I'd built up a picture before that point of the kind of things that I'd hired consultants to do prior to that, where I felt that I fitted, but I knew I was going to have to build up kind of that reputation at the beginning. And I think the challenges at the beginning were finding the right level to pitch yourself financially, so how much you're going to charge a day. And, you know, people chronically undercharge, particularly, you know, from what I've experienced, women undercharge massively. So make sure that, you know, I try and be really transparent about how much I charge, so that I can help others who are just starting out on this journey so they don't undercut themselves massively. I think another thing was that you do it for flexibility, and that ability to kind of plan your work when a lot of it is very short term can be quite, you know, short notice. So, you know, at the beginning, it's fine. I was filling up my diary. I was like, I'm available. And then quickly you lose the flexibility that you took it on to have in your life. And so that is a learning. Okay, if there are things that you specifically wanted from it, so it was to not work Fridays or something, or, you know, have, you know, finish at a certain time to spend time with your family, whatever it is that works for you, is making sure that that's your red line and you stick to that. And then I think for me, as I wanted to do more expeditions, that was a big thing that I felt I had missed out on. You know, when I was working full time, all my leave was going to like one expedition a year, and I was, you know, that was choosing between that and holidays. And so it was being really strict with, no, this time is booked out for that, and even if work crops up, then that keeping that time kind of set for the reasons that I got into consultancy in the first place. Because although consultancy can give you lots of flexibility, there are, of course, downsides to consultancy, which, you know, the challenge for me at the beginning was loneliness. You know, I'd gone from working in this team environment, going into an office every day, and, you know, part of that I love, part of, you know, commute bit I obviously didn't love, but then working from home, it was just me all day, every day. And, you know, when the poor postman would come, I'd be like, jabba, 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 because it was the first human that I'd spoken to all day. So I then realized, okay, I need to be around people. So then you look into co-working spaces, and, you know, you think differently about how your days might work. And then, you know, sometimes opportunities came up. So I got headhunted for a job. So I took that on part-time to do alongside my consultancy, which allowed me the best of both worlds for a little while. So I think that, you know, challenges wise, it can be, obviously it's different for every person, but you know, making sure you pitch yourself financially so you can afford to live comfortably, live the lifestyle that, you know, whatever your version of comfortable needs to be.
For sure.
And then again, a huge challenge for me was being visible, kind of putting myself out there. You know, naturally that wasn't something that I was naturally drawn to do. So it was, shouting about what I was doing, about my availability,
Mm.
getting a website, using social media more effectively. And before you're using those things to talk about an organization or a campaign or an issue, and all of a sudden you're having to talk about you and the things that you're doing.
Yes.
And that was a real real challenge for me. Kind of the one that I've learned over time, how I feel comfortable with doing that. But some people are more natural self-promoters than others. Maybe it's a British thing, I don't know, but it's very uncomfortable for me. So I've gotten a little
You're
bit
not
better
you're
over
not the
time.
only one. You're not alone. I feel the same way. I feel though, especially when we're in the business that we're in, marine conservation, a lot of it, when we think social media, we're like, okay, let's talk about this one particular like campaign, like you mentioned, or this project. And it's not necessarily about you. It's you're trying to be the mouthpiece for the ocean. We're all trying to be the mouthpiece for the ocean because somebody's got to do it. Right. And we're bringing information, but we often forget to talk about ourselves, and to kind of let people in on who we are and what we're like and what we're looking to do. I often forget to do that. And I've been in science communication for quite a long time, and it wasn't until people started to mention, hey, you should, during the podcast, you should mention little things about your life, just, you don't have to like tell it all the time, but just little things. And I think over that, you become a little bit more connected with your audience on social media or through podcasting or videos or whatever that might be. But it's also, you can talk about the business of it. Do you ever in your social media posts, do you ever talk about, I know you announce new projects and we'll talk about the awards that you've won recently, which is amazing. But do you ever talk about the business itself? Is that what you share? Or like when you talk about, promoting yourself a little bit, what type of promotion do you do and how do you go about doing it?
Yeah, so I think once I had kind of worked out where my niche was within kind of consultancy, and that's, that kind of sweet spot between what you want to do, but what the world wants to pay you to do. And that can take some time to find.
Yeah.
I tried lots of different things in that first year that, things that paid well or were fairly, common, often landed in my inbox, but were just really dull and I didn't want to do them, so there's kind of this finding that point. And then it was like being really focused in, this is what I'm available to do. And, whether that's, I didn't do a lot of social media in that way because actually it was a very, kind of targeted. I knew that these people would be looking, clients would be looking for me to do that kind of thing. But I was always open to what that could evolve to be. So it was kind of sort of bridging the line as well of like, I am available and these are some of my skills and that sort of thing. But a lot of the kind of the business stuff is less public, I guess, not because it's not through a lack of transparency, but it's because it's quite niche in itself. And I do a lot of mentoring as well. And that's, kind of what I try and share with people is, those lessons learned, like I've just said, about finding what you want to do, making sure to charge enough and being visible. And you find what resonates with your audience. And something I think that you just said around, letting yourself and a bit of your story out, that those posts always do the best because people like people. So no matter what kind of message you're trying to get out there, if you can put a face on it, whether it's yours or somebody else's, it does resonate with people a lot more. And I think that, going kind of through that journey has definitely made me a better communicator, whether that's related to my work or as in my business or to the mission that we're all kind of working towards.
Yeah, it makes sense too. I mean, you when you talk about business, you're going to be talking about business to the people you want to do business with, and like this is my niche, this is my skill set. Here are my experiences, it'd be great to collaborate with you sometime or work with you sometime on a particular project, or here's my idea for a project and who knows. So I think that's a great way of going about it. Now you talked about your niche, and you've worked on some pretty cool projects. Can you talk a little bit about what that niche is and how you found like that perfect, or that, I'm not sure it's going to say a perfect balance, or that balance between what you want to do and then what people will pay for you to do?
Yeah, so I think I've kind of landed in this place of inclusive conservation. So how we make our projects, practices, policies, governance, depending on, kind of the outfit that we're talking with, more inclusive. Because I certainly feel over my career that it's, we've made teeny tiny steps, but we've got a long way to go. We're better than where we were, but we've got a long way to go from here. And I find that the things that I like doing the most and that somebody will pay me to do are where I can and kind of go in and help an organization kind of be honest with itself and look at what it's doing well, what it's not doing well, and you know, who they're talking to, who they're reaching, who they're not reaching, because I feel that like the community is becoming a little bit more aware of this. There are some people who are proactive in wanting to tackle this, and they're the ones that I get, you know, love getting to work with. There's a whole lot more that needs to be done, a whole suite more organisations who aren't quite at that point yet to want to bring somebody in to kind of have a look at their dirty laundry and give them some, you know, some honest, constructive help on how they can move forward. You know, when an organisation gets that, you know, let's call it equity, diversity and inclusion, that's the term that most people seem to like now, when they realise that that's absolutely essential to their mission, not this kind of that little line over here on the side, you know, that when somebody who's kind of had that click and then they come to me and I get to work with them, that is the kind of, planets aligning. You know, I can't believe somebody's paying me to get to do this, because that's my absolute passion. That's how I came to this, because the project that I came to talk to you last time about, Seascapes, which was a kind of inclusive conservation project working with the most deprived communities in England, up in the northeast of England. And there I kind of went in with my own ideas about why people weren't engaging with ocean conservation, and those got blown out of the water in the first chat I had with some people on the seafront. And I started to understand just the deep complexities of why people aren't in the rooms I'd been in, or why people didn't feel they could come to the events, or, you know, all these different kind of facets of whatever marine conservation can look like. And I was like, we are missing out on so much. We are missing out on perspectives and energy and ideas and passion. You know, we're reaching a really, you know, small section of society, most of whom look and sound like me, and we are never going to win this fight if we've got this tiny team. You know, we need the biggest, you know, we need all of us ultimately, but if not all of us, then as many of us as possible, and to feel like they are properly part of this, that they belong in ocean conservation. And so that was my light bulb switch. And I was like, this is what I want to do. This is my bit of ocean conservation that I want to work on. And I've tried lots of different bits of ocean conservation, and then I was like, if I can find a way for someone to pay me to do this, then that's me winning. So I've done that in the kind of the journey since we last spoke. I was on the board of one of the largest marine conservation organisations in the UK, called the Marine Conservation Society, and they made me their inaugural equity, diversity and inclusion lead, and that was just such an incredible honour to get to work within an organisation that way, to try and kind of catalyse the change that we needed to see. And you know, I think we're getting there slowly, but
we need to move faster.
They're a lot faster. It would be great.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, I think there's a lot of, you see a lot more talk about it now. You know, over the past, I would say 3 or 4 years, you're seeing a lot of organizations come out and do the first step, which is to talk about it. I think the next step is, like you said, it helps to have somebody in there, maybe from outside the organization, looking in, to just kind of come in with fresh eyes and just be like, here's where there's a lacking of the DEI, diversity, inclusivity, and equity. And I didn't say that in the right order, but but you know what I mean? And so there's great value in having someone like yourself to go in and just be like, here's some difficult conversations we need to have based on your organization, and not only just within the organization, but also outside in the programs and how you can be more successful in those programs. I think we're really starting to see that the success is based on that inclusivity, right? And I think that's a really great way to look at things. Now, when you first set out to be a marine biologist and a marine conservationist, did you think this would have been the path that you took? Because I'm going to say probably no, based on the way you're shaking your head.
No, so I do. It's funny. I do a lot of mentoring, and I had this conversation with one of my mentees the other day, because he's 18 and, right at the start of his career, and he's trying to give that guidance where you're like, you won't do what you think you're going to do now, but in a way that's not like, you're wrong, because you're not.
Exciting, in an exciting way.
And and I, when I went to university and went to study marine biology, and I'm a first generation graduate, I had no idea what university even really meant. It was just this thing that I had to do if I wanted to become a marine biologist. And I kind of went in with this idea that I wanted to study whales and dolphins, like lots of people. That was very much what I wanted to do. They, just excited me beyond belief. And I went to university, and I think the careers that I went through in my mind that I wanted to do, first I was going to be a scientific diver because I learned about that, and I was like, well, that sounds cool. Then I thought that, okay, no, I do want to be an academic, and so I did a research master's, and I was like, I'm going to do a PhD. About 3 months into my research master's, I was like, this isn't for me. And I'd been volunteering at that time for like a local marine conservation NGO, the North Wales Wildlife Trust, and what they were doing was just so exciting to me. They worked with local communities to engage them in surveys. Before this was called citizen science. Citizen science wasn't a thing in 2008, but what they were doing was just so exciting. And how I realized, hey, it's not just Dr. This who gets to do ocean conservation. There's this kind of community side, and that sort of set me on a path. But I graduated just on the edge of a recession, and so I couldn't get a job doing that. So I worked for the government's environment agency for a bit, and then I did some really exciting things. I worked in Ascension Island, I worked in Sri Lanka. There's always kind of community conservation that got me really excited, and I learned how conservation is about people. I hadn't realised that until probably a few years after I graduated, and realised the importance of behaviour change, environmental psychology, all of these things, about how we switch mindsets. And over the course of kind of that journey, I guess, to probably until I was about 25, 26, and then I was like, right, okay, community conservation, and then realising that community conservation was reaching 5 retired people and their dog at an event kind of thing. And so what can I do to overcome this? And I often look back and wonder whether 16-year-old me, who thought she'd be out on a boat all day kind of surveying whales and dolphins, would be pleased or disappointed that this is where actually I ended up. But I think the being impact driven as I am, I think I can see the difference that it's making, and that that's all I want. The amount of energy and time that we all put into this job, you want to know that it's doing good and moving in the right direction. So not where I thought I would end up, but absolutely so glad I find myself here.
And I asked because I was the same way. I thought I'd be doing working with whales and dolphins, maybe sharks and so forth. And then here I am, in Ontario, living in the central Canada, and on a podcast mic, interviewing people about the marine conservation that they do. And it's something that I never regret the path that I took, but I've had over the years, and I want to ask you this, I've had over the years where I'm like, am I it's almost like, am I a traitor to that 16-year-old Andrew of not doing what I dreamt about doing? Because, there's everybody's like, follow your dreams. This is what you should be doing. Have you ever had that thought during this time? Because obviously consulting is not an easy process. We're talking about here, you've been very successful, but it's not easy. There are challenges that you face throughout the way. There's times where you don't have work and you had to get a part-time job just to kind of make ends meet and so forth. I've done this. I work at a software company and I do this, did you ever find that, like, did you like, am I being, am I really doing 16-year-old Emily justice by doing what I'm doing right now?
That's a really good question. I have asked myself that. I actually I had an argument with my sister a few years ago, and she was like, well, you haven't achieved your dreams, because from her perspective, I wasn't doing what she thought that I was going to do. And it really stuck in my head. I was like, gosh, I didn't feel like that, but it set off that thought process of like, have I? And last year I had the opportunity to go and work on an expedition ship. I got to go to Antarctica, and I got to live those 16-year-old dreams. I was out on a Zodiac
Yeah.
in Antarctica, surrounded by whales. You know, you've got orcas swimming past, there's leopard seals nibbling your boat, you know. And I was doing it, and I loved it for that sort of discrete period of time. But the whole time I was working on that ship, I just had this gnawing feeling of, this isn't what I want to be doing. You know, I loved it for the opportunity that I had. I'm so grateful I got to go.
Of course.
But the time I was there, I was still working on my campaigns. You know, I was using the rubbish ship internet from Antarctica to be emailing politicians in England, like, come on, crack on with all these things you said that, you know, you've told me you've committed to. And that was when I realized that actually my heart, you know, I'd found the right thing for me. And you know, it isn't as glamorous, it doesn't look as good on Instagram, but I love it, and I know that it's I found my calling, if you will. I don't necessarily believe that everyone has one thing they should do, but for me, I just, you know, I found the thing that makes me excited to get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah, and I agree with you completely. I did the same thing. When I was younger, actually, when my daughter was 1 year old, I was out on a ship in the Arctic, you know, working on an internet. You know, I think it was like 2007, 2008. So I was on MSN chat, like, you know, Messenger, and I was talking to her every morning, you know, or like we were able to have video chat, which is insane, but that's what happens when you're doing work with seismic surveys and so forth. There's a lot of money in that, which we'll get into another time, because not the best gig I had in the world from a conservation standpoint. But I found that I've, like, as you grow older, you change. And as you grow older, you learn more about what's necessary. And I think you almost, through that maturity and that evolution within the industry and just your own personal evolution, you find what you've always been good at, but you may not realize it until a certain point. You know, for you, it's the campaigns, it's the inclusivity, it's working with organizations to provide them with advice, mentoring, and so forth. And for me, it's that communication. I just remember always being on a boat and listening to the stories of different scientists that they had. And I'm like, this would be great for people to know. And I'd go home to my wife and be like, you should have heard this. This was amazing. And now here I am, you know, basically a storyteller and sort of like a facilitator of storytelling. And I think I think you and I and a lot of other people kind of feel that. And I think that's why we change in what we do. And then obviously there's new areas. I mean, the area that you're in was never really that big, you know, before we started, even 4 or 5 years when we first met each other in Malaysia. Science communication 10 years ago was not really a huge thing unless you were on TV, because people didn't talk about science because we weren't supposed to, you know? So I think things change, and then we all be like, oh, this is what I really want to do. And this is what's available. So I'm going to take advantage of that and get into this. So I think it's a pretty phenomenal feeling when you're like, I'm in my right place, especially when you do that trip, which is a trip of a lifetime, which I'm sure you'll have like lifetime of memories, but it's also like, okay, I've kind of solidified what I know I need, I want to do. And I think that's good to have. So can we talk about some of these campaigns, you know, and who you've been working with, and can you come up with like just some of the examples of some of these campaigns and what's involved? Because I feel like, you know, campaigns a big part of marine conservation. A lot of people end up in those as campaign managers and so forth for different organizations or as a consultancy. Can you just talk a little bit about those?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I've been doing campaigning, I think, since about 2014. So I started working with the Wildlife Trust movement in the UK. And that's where, you know, I was like, oh, this is really exciting. I like this idea that you can, you know, you've got this expert derived ask, and then, you know, you have all of these tools and things you can do to try and get the, you know, political buy-in. And I... over the past, where are we, 24, so 3 years, since 2021, I have been part of something called the Motion4TheOcean. So I'm a co-founder of this initiative, and it's myself and 2 other co-authors, so Dr. Pamela Buchan and Nicola Bridge. And in 2021, I was, alongside my consultancy, I was working as leading a coalition of local government in England, so 57 councils from all around England's coast, representing 16 million people. So I was working every day with councillors from all political backgrounds, all ages, all, you know, socioeconomic backgrounds, all around England's coast, which is, I know we're quite a small place, but a lot of diversity in you know,
Right.
what's happening in the north and south.
Yep.
And, you know, I'd been, you know, as the trust built up with these councillors, I could see that they wanted to do more for the ocean, but they didn't really understand if they were allowed to, if that was kind of within their jurisdiction. They're like, oh, but our responsibilities end at low water, or should I even be worried about that? But there was this kind of moral, you know, desire, I think, in a lot of them to do more. And so I was trying to think of kind of an instrument that we could use to enable, you know, to kind of channel all that passion that I was hearing from so many different people, and often very unexpected sources, you know, councillors of a certain political persuasion that you may not necessarily think this would be up their street.
Right.
And it was, they wanted to do more. And so I worked with Pamela and Nicola, who are both ocean experts in their own right. So Pam is a marine social scientist. She's really brilliant in kind of marine citizenship. That's her area of focus. And Nicola works for the Ocean Conservation Trust. She's an expert in ocean literacy. And so we developed this model motion. So it's kind of a blueprint of everything that's within a council's power. So nobody feels like they've been asked to do something that they shouldn't be doing. So very evidence-based, very deliverable, minimal cost, can be done within existing capacity. So it's all the things that a council does that could have an impact on the ocean, positive or negative, and trying to give them the guidance so that that's positive, pro-ocean, rather than potentially impactful. And so we developed that, and it's called the Local Government Ocean Recovery Declaration. So it's a bit like a climate emergency declaration that local governments all around the world have now passed, which is, I kind of wanted to frame it in that way because people understood the climate emergency declaration. So ours is kind of an ocean emergency declaration. And it links ocean and climate
for sure
as well. And so at that time, Pam, my co-author, was also a councillor, so she put it to her council and they became the first council to pass it in 2021. And since then we've got 24 councils that have made this ocean recovery declaration all around England, one in Wales. Together they represent over 4 million people, and they're of all sizes, from teeny tiny little town and parish councils up to cities of 1 million people, and counties as well. And we've also got inland councils. So over the past year, I've been doing lots of kind of grassroots campaigning in the Midlands, so right in the middle of England. Again, I know it's not as far to the coast from the middle of England as it is if you're in Canada, but, you know, kind of mentally, you're inland, you think about, you know, your patch, which is, you know, the sea could be 1 million miles away for how much you actually consider it. And so I've worked with 3 councils now to make ocean recovery declarations, and they're all as far inland as you can get in England, so 60, 70 miles inland. And so they've committed publicly to recognise that their decisions, although they don't have direct coastal responsibilities, actually the behaviours, the political decisions, whatever it might be, that you take inland probably have more of an impact on the coast than councils on the coast, because they're receiving all of the problems that originate from England. So it's that source to sea thinking. And so, you know, it's kind of been a shift in where does responsibility for ocean care actually lie? Is it just the responsibility of people on the edge, or should we all be taking it in? As we know, no matter where you live, you impact the ocean and are impacted by the ocean. So that has been kind of a big part of my life for the past couple of years. That's what I was doing in Antarctica, was using the ship internet to try and email councillors from Nottingham or whatever to get them to get involved with our campaign. And I mean, that's totally voluntary. The Motion for the Ocean campaigning is just me in my own time trying to kind of catalyse this change, because I'm seeing the impact it's having at a local level all around England. And so it's just trying to keep nudging that forward. And we've got our first Irish councillor interested. So if there's any listeners, no matter where you're in the world, this can be adapted. I would love to talk to you about how we can introduce it in different places. It's, you know, a really good model to be adapted to local circumstances. And I'm also going to be taking it to the UN Ocean Decade Conference in Barcelona in April as well. So hopefully trying to push it out through that as well.
Very nice. Can I just make a hot take here? I know this is voluntary. This is huge.
I think so.
Like, even just understanding how politicians at any level, whether they're apprehensive about moving on a particular issue because they don't know if they can or not, and providing that information of, here are the legislative tools that you may or may not have, and this is what you could be building. So they could already be there, but you just don't realize are there. That's from a local level.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you can adapt this to different levels, but local level is really important because that's where you see that action, right? The money's already there's, especially with the climate emergency, the money's there. If you're around the ocean or you're around a water body, there's probably money for water quality regulations and tools and legislative tools around there. And there's a lot to know. I feel as, for me, I've always taken the approach, I've always asked people in this audience to be like, hey, you need to have a conversation with your counselor, your, state or provincial representative or your federal representative. Have that conversation. Tell them what's important to you. If the ocean and the climate is important to you, you need to tell them that and why. And, I think that's a tall order to take sometimes when I ask people to do that, because it's intimidating to go to a politician. They're busy, and there's a specific way to approach politicians and to understand that they are busy and they need, policy briefs or what have you. There's a specific way to communicate with politicians, which I'd love to get into at some point in time, to be able to help, people of the audience to be able to know what they can do. But I feel it's interesting how, counselors and politicians are like, yeah, I mean, I didn't know I could do this. This is something that's really interesting. When you approach them with, the different councils, like say the person in Ireland or even in Nottingham, in like the central of the UK, how do you approach it so it's not like they don't feel like they're attacked? Because I'm assuming a lot of people who are lobbying or who are speaking to them, are complaining about specific things. So in your approach with you and your colleagues, how have you been approaching them to make it more of a let's work together on this? I assume that's what you're doing. If it's not, please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think because it originated from a place of understanding that the desire was there, just not the tools necessarily. And so I think sometimes I certainly fall into this trap. There's an assumption that politicians don't care. Now that is a huge blanket statement to make. There are some that do not care about these issues, but there are some who absolutely passionately care about these issues, and they need expert guidance on how to make a difference. And so that's literally the origins of this instrument, the Motion for the Ocean. And so our approach is always gentle. It's just, this is something we've created. Might you be interested in getting involved? And of those 24, they've pretty much all been an open door where a councillor has gone, yes, I want to champion this. Sometimes it's direct approaches. A lot of the time is I put information out through kind of councillor magazines, or I give talks at councillor events, or I go out through the various political parties. We're totally apolitical. There's no affiliation to any political party. I will support any councillor that comes to me and says, I want to do this. I don't care what party you are from.
Yep.
But another side of it that we designed it to incorporate is this marine citizenship side. So anybody can approach their counsellor, so they can take it and say, here's a link. I've seen this on Instagram. Would you be interested in tabling this? And we have like a template on what you can send to your counsellor, because I know for some people, certainly for me, until I started working in local government, which believe me was not something that I never thought I'd work for a council. I got headhunted for that job. I was approached about it and I was like, I don't know anything about this. Cool, let's go in and see what this might be like. And that's pretty much a theme of my life. It sounds cool. I'll see what it's like. But I, before that, I'd done loads of national campaigning, meeting with ministers, lobbying MPs, meeting with members of the House of Lords in England. And I never even thought of councillors as being a potential target for my ocean advocacy. And I had never really engaged, didn't understand how they worked. Council meetings seemed something that people over 60 go to. I don't know, it's just this perception that I had. And I know not a lot of people would engage with their local representatives as much as some people don't engage higher. But if you think that those representatives they're elected by us to serve us. And so if we aren't making representations to them, we aren't speaking about the issues that we care about, then how are they to know that that's kind of the tone of their, whatever they represent, constituency or otherwise? And it can be overwhelming, really overwhelming to reach out to a politician. I know when I first used to do it, it was terrifying, but they are humans and they work for you. And I think the thing to remember is that, you don't have to be an expert to go. You don't have to have a PhD, you don't have to have loads of experience. If you're really passionate about an issue, you've gone surfing, you've gone swimming in the sea or something, and you've seen a lot of sewage, you tell your MP about it and say, or whatever that is in your country, and say, this can't go on. What are you doing about this thing that is affecting where we live? And the more of us that speak up and use our voices, and it can be as simple as that. Now with social media, you can at them in whatever means that you like. It's just making sure that these issues are on their radar as important to the people that are elected to represent. And I think in the UK, for example, we're in an election year. It's it's all getting very, very hot and very exciting. And the environment, I think, for the first time ever, is going to be up there with kind of the key election issues. And that only happens because people are making a noise. And so the Motion for the Ocean, for example, is just one, piece of this very big jigsaw. But the reason that we, kind of make it as easy as possible is because we know it can be daunting to people. But I have never had anything other than a warm reception. Even if somebody's not interested, you just get a reply that says no, and in which case you then go, right, well, I'll have to pull out some other tools from my campaign toolkit. But if anybody listening thinks, oh, this is the Motion for the Ocean or otherwise is something that I'd like to take to my local representative, and then you get a response that you don't know how to deal with, we as the kind of co-founders of the Motion for the Ocean are very happy to support you through that process. And genuinely, people that respond are people that want to do it. And they understand the political system. You don't necessarily need to understand that. It's just about getting it on their radar. And, that has been a revelation for me, is an assumption that people wouldn't care. And you go and they're like, no, I'm a member of this local wildlife charity. I love bird watching. I want to, or whatever it is. And there's people, there are hidden allies often hiding in plain sight. So don't be afraid of reaching out.
Yeah. And I think I really like that advice. When you first started to reach out, who did you reach out to? And did you do it as part of a job, or was it more of just your own personal feeling? Like I'm interested in knowing, what they can do here. Like, who did you reach out to first, and how did you do it?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So my first kind of foray into political advocacy, I had a job with a local wildlife trust, Cheshire Wildlife Trust in England, and my job was a marine officer. They'd never had a marine officer before, and there was a kind of national campaign at that time around marine protected areas, and there was a template letter to send to your MPs. So I sat one evening at home and wrote 24 letters to all of the local MPs by hand and posted them the next day. And one got back to me and invited me to go meet him. And I was like, oh no, I have no idea what I'm meant to say about, I knew a little bit about marine protected areas. I think it was 23 or 24. And, I was like, okay. And so I spoke to the CEO of my charity, and she said, I'll go with you. And so she went with me, and we met with this MP, and it was eye-opening because this MP was like, how can I help you? And I was like, oh gosh, I thought I was going to have to pitch and sell this issue. And he was like, I can help you. I could do this. I could do this. I could do this with this committee. And I was like, oh wow, I've totally misunderstood the dynamic here, and realised that there are people within, I'm sure all countries, there will be politicians who care about these issues, and they are looking for people to help them as much as the other way around. And so that kind of shifted my mindset. And then I, started going to, meet with members of parliament in parliament. I started, as I progressed then to a different job within that organisation, but at a national level, I was going to kind of ministerial meetings, and I just started to understand how that political system worked, and realise that people are people who are wanting to do good for the ocean, but they need to be linked up with, the people that know, the people on the ground. It might be that they need to show, demonstrate the support from the public, and so they might lean back on you as an NGO and say, how can you help us demonstrate that? So it's kind of this, relationship building like anything else. And then when it came to councillors, like I said, that wasn't something until much later in my career. I had never written to my councillor about anything. I thought councillors dealt with like potholes and bins or whatever. I had no idea. And I found this huge warm community of people. Not all of them. Some people really didn't care. It didn't matter how I framed it, they're not going to be interested. But don't worry about them. Just need to get enough people, and that kind of cross-party support on these issues, and they run away with it. There's people who I've given them some starter points, and then the next thing they're like, I've spoken to the minister for you. Amazing, thank you. I didn't even ask you to do that. So yeah, I think politicians are people too, and most people get into politics because they want to do something, they want to make a difference, and for a lot of people, green issues are increasingly a vote winner, so they're increasingly interested. I'm happy
exactly. I mean, it's really hard, I find, these days for a party to ignore, even politicians to ignore what's happening with the environment. I mean, we're just seeing so many problems, flooding, drought. These are things that are not only affecting the environment, but also affecting people's livelihood. So it's really hard to ignore. And for those who still ignore, like you said, you don't necessarily have to deal with them. You can deal with other councillors or politicians who would like to do something about it and have put it in their campaign promises, and maybe just need the extra support from people. I think that's, something that I just, as you were talking, I'm like, I wonder how many politicians think they have the support for the environment, because, when it comes down to it, who's really talking about the environment to them? We see a lot of people talking online, but it may not be to them. And unless it's to them, they may not think that this is a big issue within your district or however your region, or however they describe it or cut it up. But I think that's really interesting. So for people in the audience who've never really reached out to politicians and may not have like a degree in marine biology or things like that, but they want to speak up for the ocean, they want to engage their councillors or Congress or members of Parliament, what would you suggest they do in terms of reaching out about the ocean if they don't have a lot of, they're not marine biologists or marine conservationists?
So I think it's obviously find out who your representative is. It can be worth doing a little bit of background check on them. So just have a look, even if it's at their website or their socials, or particularly if you're in the UK, there's it's called They Work For You, and then you can look at how they voted on things. And so that can give you an idea. Actually, they might be really active in this area. And so you think, hey, it's going to be an easy conversation, or it might be that they're very anti it. And so you think, well, actually, I need to get you, where do I move the dial? And so understanding that can kind of help prepare you for what you kind of go in and say.
Yeah.
So if they're really warm, if there's somebody who's spoken up in, your parliament or whatever and said, spoken up about ocean or climate or biodiversity or whatever it is, I would just send them an email and just say, hi, I'm Emily. I live in your area. I'm really passionate about the ocean. And if there's anything I can do to help, I want to see you speaking up more about these things. Yeah. Send some links if there's particular campaigns that you've seen, or, if there's something locally and you think, I'm really worried about, I'm seeing a lot of this thing happening in my area. Tell them, because they might not know about it. They probably don't know about it. And just see what happens. Quite often they'll invite you to meet with them. They might just send an email back saying, thanks for making me aware, please stay in touch. Often it'll be there, they'll have some form of assistant, but those people, they influence what the MP sees and doesn't. So they're probably more important than the MP, than your parliamentarian or elected representative, whatever it is in your country. It can be harder if they're at the other end of the scale. And believe me, I've lived in areas where there is zero interest from my local MP. That's not a reason not to keep sending them stuff, because if it's landing in their inbox, then at least their assistants are aware that people in their constituency are caring about an issue. If you're not getting any reply from them, don't be disheartened. It can be about kind of saying, well, actually, we need to be a bit more visible about this. So, reaching out in your local community, whether that's physically or on social media or whatever, and finding other people who care about these issues, which in itself is a really, helpful endeavour, finding other people in this fight, because it can be so lonely. And then together you can say, well, hey, we're not getting our representative isn't representing us and saying what we want them to say. And so it's looking at different ways of making that happen, whether that's going down the line of protest or petitions or otherwise. But don't assume that they won't be interested. You'll probably be hopefully be pleasantly surprised. I have been lots of times.
Yeah, exactly. Going with expectations, but no expectations as well. And there are different ways to react to however they react, right? And like you said, you can go more of the advocacy route and the activist route, or you can, go in more policy route and try and, work with them and provide them with information, and maybe say, where can I find support? Oh, well, here's where you can find support. Here's a great group on Facebook or whatever that's really talking about these issues. So I think it's really interesting. I'm really happy we did this interview. This is what I love about podcasting. You go in with something that expectations. I was like, let's get a lot of updates on your projects, and then you're like, hey, now we've got some great advice, not only on how to start your own consultancy or what to think about, but also on how to reach out to your politicians, which I love this. And then we got to know what you're up to and so forth. But as we kind of close up, do you want to just mention anything that you're working on right now, or that you're going to be working on in the future that you're able to share?
Yeah, sure. So I think the big one is, I've said about Motion4TheOcean already, but really keen to take this internationally and adapt it however it can be used. It doesn't have to be in the same format. So if you're listening, no matter where in the world, please feel free to get in touch. You can search Motion4TheOcean's hashtag Motion4TheOcean, Motion4TheOcean, or put it on Google. It'll bring you to me. And my other big project for this year is I'm writing a book, my first book. So it's called Our Ocean to Save, and it is pretty much everything we've talked about in this podcast so far. And in it, I want to try and I want to use it as a process to learn more, to amplify voices, to kind of, dismantle even the things I think I already know. So I'm going to be reaching out a lot to this community as I write it. And so, I'll be listening to what's going on. And if you've heard anything today and you think, hey, I want to talk to you about that, then please do get in touch. Because I feel that in a lot of ways, ocean conservation, the world I entered 15 years ago, we are in some ways so much better off than when I started. The level of awareness, whether that's public awareness, political awareness, we should pat ourselves on the back for people who've been working so hard for this for so long, because it's tough, it's thankless, it's incessant, but we are making progress. But some of the things that I thought we'd have got to by now, we haven't. And so I think a lot of we have this kind of growing movement, and it's how we use that to really get what we need done sooner than the current kind of rate of change is. And so the book's going to be exploring a lot of that. So that's kind of the next year, me sat here typing away, hopefully talking to lots of interesting people along the way. And when I say get in touch, I mean you don't feel like you've got to have a degree, be a PhD, have a PhD, any of that stuff. Like, if you're really passionate and you've got thoughts about, how ocean conservation can be done better, and new ideas on how we haven't done things, on things you think, well, why isn't nobody doing this? Why hasn't anybody done this yet? Then reach out, because I'd love to explore that.
Perfect. That's amazing. Emily, this I can't wait to read that book and have you on to talk more about that book. I'm looking forward to seeing what ideas you come out with, and how you're going to approach this. I think it's going to be amazing. We'll put all the links to connect with you, as well as Motion4TheOcean, and any other links that you're working on that you'd like people to know about. I think it's great. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Of course, we'd love to invite you back to get more of an update and more tips on how we can move marine conservation forward in a positive way. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Emily, for joining us here on the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. It was great catching up with you. I just, the one benefit I get from doing these shows and doing this podcast is being able to speak to people that I haven't talked to in years, and be able to catch up to them, and then sharing that conversation. I mean, this is one of the reasons why, the major reason why I started this podcast. Originally, it was supposed to be an all interview podcast where I would talk to friends, and then I got really into it and I wanted to talk about more and news and all that kind of stuff. And you know the deal if you've been following me ever since. So but it's awesome to be able to hear the success, the challenges, and just the joy that Emily has, being able to make a change and being able to, provide more than what you were used to in marine science and conservation. Being able to talk to politicians is something I talk about all the time, and this is one of the conversations where we really get into it, and I just think it's great. So go back, listen to it again. Being able to, one, be able to get grant funding, and two, be able to speak to politicians are probably one of the biggest pluses in conservation for like an employee or for somebody who's in consulting. Having those connections, having those relationships really help. So if you can get grants and you can get funding, that's great. If you can speak to politicians, that's also great. So I just love it. I'm going to share all the information and links that Emily and I discussed in her interview, especially with the Motion for the Ocean. And you can connect with her. And just, she does mentoring as well. And so you can always connect with her. And if she has time, she'll be able to work with you. And this is what I just love about it. She's offering so much for you guys. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to hit me up on Instagram. DM me at How to Protect the Ocean. If you like this episode and you want to hear more about these types of careers and stuff like that, let me know. And of course, don't forget to go to speakupforblue.com. That's speakupforblue.com/CC Academy. All one word. I'll put the link in the show notes below, and you can get access to that. Put in SUFB for 33% off and save some money, and then just enjoy the community, really. And if you see me in there, please look me up and connect with me. I'd love to connect with you while you're in there. That's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Lewin. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next time, and happy conservation.